Aloha!
Hola! Good morning.
Good morning.
We are
Shady.
Z, and we are in Hawaii.
Estamos en Hawaii.
And we've been talking about farm planning and planning your farm because we don't yet have a farm, but we have plenty of time. So we've been doing some farm planning, and we want to share that with you. So the last video we talked about 7 questions you need to consider before you start your farm. And this week we're going to talk about the 6 considerations when creating your farm plan. And behind us right here we have 2 of our favorite properties that we've done little farm plans for, so we're going to go over those towards the end of the video. You can check that out. But first I want to talk about this book I read. It's called Compact Farms by Josh Volk, and it's farm plans done on 5 acres or less. There's 15 of them, and these are actual farms around the United States and Canada, I believe. And it shows you what they're doing, how they're making their money, what they're growing. It's really interesting. So if you're designing your farm or your farm's not running the way you want, this is a great book to pick up and read. All right, so this video is going to be about actually designing and planning your farm. And then the next set of videos after this, we're going to actually go into the business plan for a farm. Because if you're looking to take out a loan, if you just want your farm to be financially viable, you really need to build a business plan. And Jose and I have been working very hard on our business plan for these 2 separate properties that we really like. And we want to share that with you and help you do your own if you're interested in doing a farm. All right, so let's go into the 6 considerations when building your farm plan. So Jose, help us out with what is number 1.
Número 1. ¿Cuál es la situación correcta actual?
So yeah, what's the current situation on the land you're purchasing or the home you live in? Like, what do things already look like? So where are the buildings located? For instance, this property over here that we're getting ready to look at already has a house on it. It has a barn on it. It has a 2-car garage, and it has 64 acres of trees. So we need to take into consideration those factors that are already on the farm. Where will our tools be stored? How far of a walk will it be back and forth to things? Other things that you need to consider that are probably already there might be your water source, because the things that you need to water often would be important to have closest to the water source. Yeah. Let's see, other things.
Más cosas.
Yeah, like where are your trees? Where are your rocks that you don't want to move or are going to be unable to move? So if you have extremely large trees that you want to keep, you might want to be doing some planning around those areas, right? Okay, and then also where will you be putting your animals? So, yeah, those are some things to consider. What's happening on your property currently is the first thing to consider. All right, Mr. Jose, what is number 2?
¿Cuál es el acceso que tienes a agua y sol?
Right, the 2 most important things for your plants are going to be
Water.
And
Sol.
Water and sun, that's right. So you want to look at where your water will be coming from and in what direction the sun is going to pass over your property. Because let's say your property isn't flat and it's hilly. You may have a hill that faces the sun and you may have a hill that faces away from the sun. The birds are very active this morning, which I love, not when I'm making a video. So we really need to look at where is the sun going to be hitting your crops so that you're planting in a way that's effectively utilizing the sun. And the same with water. You may have hills on your property, and the water is going to flow down those hills. It's going to be drier at the top of the hills and probably have more moisture at the bottom of the hills. So you need to consider how you are, where you have access to water and how water is going to flow on your property. All right, so that's number 2. Number 2 is sun and water. What is number 3?
¿Qué es lo secundario?
So what are the secondary factors that you need to consider next to the sun and to the water? And one of the main things is going to be your soil. What does your soil look like? I didn't put that in the primary factors because you can do a lot of things to amend your soil and make your soil better. So you want to take a look at what does your soil look like. Here in Hawaii, we have a lot of lava flow areas, which means the soil, although is very rich in nutrients, there may not be much soil. It's going to be a lot of rock, and so growing in rock, not that easy. So you need to look at what does the rock look like. Other things you need to consider in this is the wind. Where is the wind coming at your property? The macadamia nut farm we're looking at, macadamia nut trees can be very affected by the wind. So we need to know how are we going to create wind barriers to keep the wind away from our trees and to minimize the impact the wind has on the trees. So wind would be a secondary factor you need to think about when designing your property. And another thing is going to be the animals that you're going to have on your property, because if you're putting together a large vegetable garden and you have animals that really like fruits and vegetables, you're going to have a problem. One year in Colorado, I know we planted rows of peppers, and right as the peppers got almost ready to harvest, raccoons came through and took every single last one of them. Another year they did it with our ears of corn. They came in, they pulled over every single one. And so you really need to think about what animals and predators are going to be affecting your property. If you're doing chickens and you have anything like weasels or raccoons, you need to make sure that they're protected at night, because those animals can come in and kill off some of your crop. And the weasels, they can take out a lot of chickens in a night for sure. So really you need to think about those types of factors. Are you going to be using electric fences? Do you need those areas to be closer to you? Those are going to be the kind of things you need to consider in your secondary factors.
Yeah. Ok. Estamos en número 4.
We're in number 4.
¿Cuál es el tiempo que necesitas?
Okay, what is going to require the most of your time? This is a really important thing to look at, because the things that are going to require your time more often, say your vegetable gardens, you need to have those closer to your work area so that you're not having to walk back and forth constantly. If it's nice and close to your work area, it's going to be easier to access. Things like your orchards that you will not need to be giving as much attention to. An orchard you may not even need to see every day. You can have those further out. Your animals that you may need to check on once or twice a day, those can be somewhere in the mid-range, because you need to check on them, but you don't need to spend all day working on those things. So you won't be walking back and forth as often. So just really think about what's going to require the most of your time, and you want those things closer in so that you're not having to cover the more distance. It'll just help you save on time and energy every day. Yeah. All right, what is number 5?
¿Cuál es tu mercado? ¿Cuál es tu objetivo?
Yeah, what is your market? One of the things you want to consider when you are planning your farm is what are you going to be selling and what does your market want? Because if you plant a bunch of apples and nobody wants your apples, it's not going to be a very effective farm plan. So you really need to consider what you're planting based on what it is that the market wants and what the market is going to purchase, so that you're not wasting your time, you're not wasting your space. You really want to know what it is that people want and are going to purchase from you, especially if you're planning on taking your food to market. If it's just for your family, plant all the rows of carrots you want. But if you take them to the farmers markets and nobody wants carrots, then you just basically wasted that space and your time. Your time, when you are farming, your time is extremely valuable, because it's a lot of hard work, and you don't want to be spending extra time if you don't have to. And the last thing you want to consider.
¿Qué es lo que necesitas?
What is it that you need, and what is it that you want? Now, I don't mean to say that this is the last thing you should consider when you're building your farm plan, but probably should be one of the last things to consider, because your market's going to be more important than you. Where your sun and water are coming from are going to be more important than you. But also, what do you want to grow on your farm? So, for example, Jose and I, what is our favorite thing in the morning, Jose?
Bananas.
Well, okay, we like bananas, but what is the first thing we have every morning?
Manzanas.
Okay, apples too. We love apples, but I don't know if they grow very well in Hawaii. There's one other thing. What do we drink every morning? You're killing me, Jose. What is the first thing I bring you in the morning?
Coffee.
Coffee. Thank you. Thank you for helping me out. One of our favorite things is coffee. So we probably won't be taking it to market. It won't be for anybody else, but we want to grow our own coffee. And the beauty of living in Hawaii is we can grow our own coffee. So I think that's going to be very important for us to have a little spot dedicated to that on our farm. Yeah. Okay, so one last thing I want to talk about before we actually take a look at our 2 farm plans is to think about time. Because if you're starting a brand new farm and you have, let's say, 5 acres that you can grow on, you really want to consider how you're going to build up your space over time. Because you're not going to want to start with if you've never farmed before, start with an acre of vegetables. Because you're going to be overwhelmed. So you may want to start with a 1/4 acre of vegetables and see how that works out, and then the next year extend out another 1/4 acre. And as you get better, then you're going to know more about what you want to do. So I really recommend starting your farm maybe a little bit smaller and planting your first, acre first, and then extending out from there as you gain more knowledge, as you get more comfortable. Because gardening can be very frustrating, and there's a lot of things to think about that you will never consider before you get started. No matter how much you read, a garden will throw a curveball for you, and you'll have no clue what's going on. So really think about how you're developing out your space over time. So I'm going to show you on our farm how we went ahead and did that. And the other thing is to consider the size of your farm. The reason a farm plan is important is because the larger your farm is, the more important this is going to be, because it can get out of control really quickly if you don't know what are the specific things, what is your specific focus. And if you have a really small farm, this is also very important because your space is of the essence and very important. If you only have, let's say, a 1/4 acre or a 1/2 acre, you really want to get specific about how you're utilizing your space to get the most bang for your buck. All right, so let's take a look at the 2 farm plans that we developed. I'll talk about them here real quick. This one over here is a 64-acre macadamia nut farm. The macadamia nut trees are already planted. I'm guessing from looking at the pictures, because we haven't been able to see the property yet, because we can't really travel. So it is somewhere between 1,600, no, maybe around 3,000 trees, I think, on the property producing macadamia nuts. They probably need some care. They haven't been harvested in a few years. And like I said, we don't know the condition of the trees yet. But so that's what this farm already is. There's already a house on it, already a barn. This property over here is 6 raw acres. It's treed over, and it's in Hana. It's a property we really love and have spent a lot of time thinking about. Maybe too much, but what else is there to do right now? It is beautiful. So let's go ahead and stand up. I'm going to talk you through what the plan is on these 2 pieces of property. Okay, so this first one is the 64-acre of macadamia nuts, and what you're seeing here, the big blank area is all the macadamia nut trees they have planted, rows and rows and rows. This just talks about how many trees are on the property and how much money I think we can make off of the macadamia nuts themselves. And then the house and barn are down here in this back corner. This long pink thing you see is the driveway, so that's the access to the property. The house and barn are all the way at the back of the property. And each of these squares right here, this 3x3 square is roughly an acre of land. It's not exact, but for the purposes of using sticky notes, I tried to make it close. So we would be doing an acre, which is these yellow guys, of vegetables. We would be doing an 1.5 acres of mixed fruit orchard. And then this would be our vanilla beans, and these are our greenhouses. So one of the things with the plans is obviously the orchard wouldn't need to be taken care of that often. So I did all of the things that we would need to take care of more often closer to the house, like the vanilla beans and the vegetable gardens. And then we would just be doing 1/4 acre of vegetables at a time. We wouldn't be doing the whole acre to start with. So I broke this into, this would be vegetable plot number 1, our first 1/4 acre. And then in year 2, we would add this one. Year 3, we would add this. Year 4, we would add this. And the same thing we're doing with the orchard. The first year, we're going to plant a 1/2 acre of orchard. The second year, another 1/2 acre. And then we're going to follow it as we learn what the market wants and what the market is buying, we're going to add another ½ acre of orchard over the next couple of years. Vanilla bean would be even further out down the road because it's going to be fairly expensive for us to start that. So that is the 64-acre macadamia nut farm. Let's take a look at what we did for the Hana property. All right, so this is one of our favorite properties right here on Maui. It's in Hana, and it is 6 acres of land, and it's in a really neat pie shape. This is the road along here, and then it backs up the properties on these 2 sides. But it's a raw piece of property. There's nothing there yet, and the beauty of it is we would be able to build it out the way we wanted instead of already having stuff set up like this one is. So what we did here is each of the sticky notes squares 3x3 is a 1/4 acre, not a ½ acre, because this is a much smaller piece of property than our 64-acre macadamia nut farm. And this would be where we would like to put our house. This is our driveway. Jose, where are the chickens at? We would have our chickens right up here. And then these are the vegetable patches we would do. We would start with vegetable 1, 2, 3, 4, planted out over 4 years so that we're slowly learning what the market is and figuring out what it is we want to plant. We would do an acre of orchard on here and then 2 or another ½ acre of mixed fruits like papayas and pineapples and those kinds of things. And then vanilla beans, lilikoi, these would be our greenhouses. This would be our compost pile, and this would be our very own patch of coffee. But we don't have the properties yet. We're just looking, and we're excited to be thinking about the properties. So if you're even considering farming, I highly recommend you start setting up and doing farm plans. Even if you don't yet have a farm, or you're thinking about doing your yard, just do a practice plan. Because I think one of the things people miss when they get started farming is they don't think about the planning, because farming takes a lot of time and energy, and you really want to utilize your planning so that you're as effective as possible. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Stay tuned because we have a lot of business planning videos coming up. We're going to actually build a business plan together with you, because a lot of people are scared and nervous about doing an actual business plan. But if you need to take out a loan or you just want to do your property, you really need to know that. So if you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button. Also, subscribe to our channel. Who are we?
Jose.
Z. And we would love to hear more about what you have going on, hear about your farms. So feel free to share with us. Thank you for joining us today.